Hello friendo, today I'm going to be teaching you about the Skirmisher class for the Javelin, and we're going to be learning here today that it is really awesome, that it has the ability to single-handedly stop people on the enemy team. It can interrupt them, it softens them up and makes them lovingly kissable by your teammates, and you can use it to save them a lot of the time. End up a devastating force on the field here, as long as you have the skill level to back up a lot of these crazy throws. Skirmisher class used to have a horizontal swing here. It was really comical, but as you can see, the damage is like silly and very terrible, so it was kind of a meme. They took it out, so now you just got two pokies. So here we got the left mouse button poke, and then we get the heavy poke with a little bit more, but not a lot. This is probably one of the worst choices out of all choices. You have the poke, with the upper, and then you have the overhead, and that means you can defend against one of these people by either telling whether they have an overhead or you counter using the poke, and that's all you have to do. There's only two choices that they can make against you. But that means if you're using the jab yourself, you have to match the counter for the swing they're using, but they only have to use this one of the two choices, which is usually the poke. So it's very easy to counter use, so that makes it one of the worst choices possible. Another thing, if you've noticed here, is that the box for the jab is actually on the right hand side in first person, and it starts out really far, and as it comes towards the enemy, it sort of goes in an arc towards the left, so it's really difficult to read visually, and it's really awful. And in third person, it's actually the opposite, where it's on the left side of the dot, so visually that is horrendous. So your brain probably will try and focus on the dot, and it's just going to miss. So it's going to look a lot of the time like your model is actually going through them, and it's not actually registering that anything happened, so it will confuse and anger you, and you really have no hope. So I really would probably recommend not to use this, but if you're going to, maybe play with bots or something just so you can get a feel for it, because if you're going to go by visual of the dot or visual of the model, it's going to be wrong. So do that. But to be honest, you really shouldn't be doing a lot of this anyways, simply because even though you have like the most stamina and some of the best secondaries for the archer class, you really don't have the ability to do very well in 1vx, because again, they have length over you. They have like the Kniggets have like 4 or 5 times the health pool you have, unless you have one of the blunts. But if you use one of the blunts, then you can only get through to multiple targets if you hold down the heavy. So you kind of have to make a choice on whether you're going to cleave them and then try and take all of them on at once. But if you know they're intelligent at all, they'll just kind of like poke you at different times outside of your reach range and get but you don't really have to shy away from that. It's just it's usually not in your favor to do these things, and you have your shield, and if your shield gets boop bop, then you get kind of stunned in place, but chances for you to take all of them out is pretty low. But what you can do is either come up behind them stealthily and you have an advantage over them, or in the case of where you can get a few of your jabs off of them, you can take away their giant HP pool, so that'll level the playing field greatly in your favor. So that's probably a point in time where you'd want to go in, simply because you used all your jabs. But also, the only thing you could do is go get more jabs, or you could try and take these people out, because now they have half the health pool they used to, and now they're mostly all in the 1 tap or 2 tap range, so it's really greatly in your favor now. So you can see I'm kind of just doing that here. They all kind of got banged up, so I have the ability to take them out, and it works pretty well. It works pretty well. like I said, you have some of the best secondaries out of all the secondaries at your choice, especially like this is like I think short, where it's a different class, but it's kind of the same thing more or less. But like it used to be really strong. It was one of the best choices in the game, and it's still a really strong choice. So like I would probably keep an eye out for those because they can kind of change in the meta, but usually have those really strong picks. So you can see here, this guy's really low. I interrupt that guy to give him some space. I try and interrupt the guy over here, and now they're both one tappable, and he was able to defend himself long enough so I can cover for him. See here, I probably should have switched to my secondary, because if I didn't have my secondary out, I can't take on multiple people with the pokey of the Jav. And now for something completely about shields. Shields are really cool in that they are kind of an extension of jabs, where you have an extra plate of spaghetti to just kind of throw at people, and then when you get them, it feels so good, especially if you take them out like in the head, because it feels like you just spilled all your spaghetti on them. It does suffer from the same throwable things that all throwables have, where they sometimes just don't register, so don't put all your eggs in one basket, because a lot of the time it just won't work. If it gets destroyed, it will stun you. So there's always that. You can push the same button that you have out, like you have your one out, you can push it again and it'll put the shield on your shoulder, so you don't have to just chuck it everywhere. But once it's on your shoulder, it will not block anything. You can riposte arrows, which make the thwack sound when you riposte off of somebody's swing at you. You can block with the blocking at them, so that works as well. It's really great. You can just intimidate people sometimes, and that works too. Don't sleep on the shield either, because the shield can often come out and save you, because it can pull some really cool maneuvers off sometimes where people just don't expect you to use it. So like here, if this guy was low HP at all or whatever, I can tap him with it, or I can throw the spear and tap him with it. That's enough. So that saved me some stamina. He was not expecting it, and now I have to face off these guys, so I didn't have to deal with that knight, or the archer. So now I went from a 3v1 to a 2v1, and that guy backed off for whatever reason, and that ended up saving me, so I would have ran out of stamina. Here I'm going to help this guy. I see him. I'm going to try and take both of them with low HP, and then finish him off with the shield.
For the cross and lion!
Easy rescue.
Strike them at their rear end!
Here I can't really get through, but I can throw the shield, and in the head, 62. Bonk. You can also pick up the heavier shields and use those instead, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 before it breaks. And so as long as you're not getting ooned, or oosed, you'll be able to do it. So 2, 3, 4, and then it breaks. That's one thing you have to be careful about, because you can get drained of your stamina real quick, and even if it doesn't get destroyed, it can be knocked out of your hand. Stamina draining things or blunt things can achieve this goal even faster against you. Landing the shield can sometimes put you in a better position than your opponent by putting them into the 1 HP range, so even if they're better than you mechanically or better equipped, you can still defeat them, because they just have to make one mistake now, and then you can take advantage of them and take them out. And lastly for this section, I just wanted to show you real quick that if you hold your shield out, you will drain stamina, so don't do that. Okay, next up, I'd like to address a very important issue and mechanic thing that you might not know to not do in the beginning, and is just like a mechanical problem with the game in general and throwing objects, is that sometimes when you throw things, jabs, obviously you're throwing them all the time, is that they just will not register for whatever reason, and you should never depend on them registering for your life. So not only do they not register, sometimes they go through people, or and they just get stuck, or they disappear, or they visually impact, but they do not actually do anything. So you don't want to do that scenario almost ever. It's not going to happen too often, but I mean, it happened enough times that I have like a whole like 2-minute segment of it going on. So it can be sometimes advantageous to do that, but know that you 100% will lose if you do not land it, and if it doesn't get mechanically working, it's not going to work either. So you can see if you don't have enough time between you and the other person, and you'll learn that over time the distance that's appropriate, they will get you. And you can see this guy, I land him again, and poke him, he's still up, and he's gotten a horn from somebody, so that's how he's overhealed for that. So see, again, bad distance with this Vanguard, and we both traded, but him or that Knight, we don't know what his HP is. His HP was boosted from the horn, so you don't really know what it is. So here I traded with this guy, and I had enough time to react, but you don't know his HP, you don't know what's going to happen, so you don't really want to make those choices when you can choose not to. And like all throwables, you can just be blocked, so you know, you expect that to happen. So the horn of the trumpet regenerates your health as well as overheals you, which is indicated by that little green shield there at the bottom left corner of your screen. This is a chart here that uses golden bones and purple fish to indicate whether or not you should throw a javelin at somebody. So we're looking at here on the left side, the health minus the head damage from a javelin, and then you have the same thing plus the overheal from the horn of the trumpet. And then the next one is 2 javelins to the chest, and then the last one is 2 javelins to the chest with the person having the overheal from the trumpet. Now if we look at Archer and Vanguard, these are both listed under golden bones. Now golden bones are indicating this is an ideal scenario for you to do this. So the Archer one, we see he snuffs it, okay? And then he snuffs it again in the next scenario, and then he takes 2 to the chest and he always snuffs it. And then he's got 2 to the chest and he's got overheal. Guess what? He gets snuffed. So ideal scenario, always throw it at the Archer. Vanguard. So the Vanguard, if you get him in the head, he snuffs it. If he's got overheal, he will live with 23 health. So if he's got any damage at all, throw it at the Vanguard, because he will snuff it if you get him in the head. Regardless of whether he has overheal or not, he's always going to snuff it. Now the Footman, while you see he's kind of similar, I put him in purple fish because he has the ability to dodge a lot quicker, so he's got the ability to dodge and not get taken out, and he also has a smaller head. So he's just more difficult to do it, but you can get him sometimes. So if he's got any damage on him, look for that and take him out. Same thing in the next scenario, and if you can get him with 2, check it out, because if he's got a decent amount of damage on him, you can get him in 1, or you can definitely get him in 2. And same thing as the other scenario, even if he's overhealed, you can pretty much take him out if he's got any sort of damage on him. So the Knight, he's got shields and he can do whatever he wants to pretty much, so you're never really going to look for that. So even though if you stick him in the head, he's going to have a decent amount of damage. So unless he's really heavily damaged, you don't want to mess with Knights unless you're trying to help somebody out or doing whatever, because most of the time they're just going to take your jab and run far away with it, and you're not going to get much accomplished. So that is the least ideal scenario. And also they have the shields, and they can just block with the shield and you wasted your jab, you know. And versus if you're going for Archers or Vanguards and you see them and you have a priority, always take them, because you can take them out in almost every single scenario. Okay, so now that you've seen the numbers for it, so let's look at it in the actual game. So here's a guy, he's got damage, his Knight pretty heavy, he goes down. This guy is full health, or overhealed, so I stick him and he just doesn't care. Then here we have Vanguard, I stick him once, stick him twice, he's down. Here's a Knight, Knight, you stick him, he overheals, but it's not fast enough, and it's not enough, you can take him down. Here's a Vanguard, get him in the head, he's down. Here's an Archer, head, here, and he's down. Here's a Man-at-Arms, head, he's alive. Head, alive. Here's a Vanguard, I think. 2 down. There's also no fall off for this, so that's really good. So all those rules apply at the same time. So here, stick that guy. He just walks away because he's got full health and overheal as a Vanguard. So I stick this guy, and now he's got Vendetta for me, and since he's a knight, he lived and he got his revenge. Now the best position to be in usually is flank, because flank has the ability where people are not going to be able to see you, where if you're behind them, it's not such a great position usually because people will spawn in behind you. So you're really usually better off with the flank position. And ideally you want to get a person with every single throw, and then you can move on from your shield and then go in and finish them off. And then ideally that would be the best, and then you would retreat and then go get more throwables, and that's usually what you can do. Most often you're gonna end up just softening up the enemy team, and this can be kind of demoralizing for you because you feel like you're not achieving anything, but you're actually, like here, getting this entire push on the right side happen because of what you did. Now when it comes to other throwables, there's a lot of ones you want to look out for. Throwing canoes are very unhappy towards you. They can go faster than you can, so if they can land it on you, it's really bad. Those Dane axes from the Vanguard are really bad. They will get you in one tap. Now archers are kind of a mixed bag. The regular archers are not so great to go up against because they're very strong, especially if they have the advanced bow. The advanced one is very strong against you, and it can one-tap you in a lot of places. So try and engage them from a far distance away. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad time. Only do one at a time. Don't engage multiple ones because that becomes nearly impossible for you to do. You can track them, try and get them on their reloading times or on their positional movements where they're going to lock themselves into place while they're aiming. That's a good time to take them. And since there's no fall off, you have the opportunity to get them from a far distance ways away. Cross dudes are an exception where if you can get them in the reload animation, you can stun lock them and you can throw another one out before they can get their animation through. Jabs have a lot of power psychologically where you can anger people and then they will have a vendetta against you a lot of the time. And it also has the ability that if you can get a sneaky tap on somebody, it'll take all of their health and it'll completely demoralize them, and they won't want to engage anymore at all, and they feel kind of defeated. Now when it comes to safely engaging your teammates, I wouldn't really worry about it too much unless they're like heavily damaged, where you can take them out like I just did there, because otherwise it only does 21, so that's really not a lot, you know, compared to the like 85 or 132 that you can knock out of an enemy. So I would say probably the worst thing is that you might throw it at somebody and then they'll run off with it. Whether they're enemy or human, they just run away with your stick and you'll never see it again. I just called them not human. But yeah. That 21 is not going to make a huge difference in a lot of classes, so that, you know, they're going to get 2-tapped either way in most scenarios, so it's really not going to make much of a difference. Gotta track him, and he's going to heal, and he's going to feel like he's safe behind there, so I bop him. Same thing with this guy, he's going in a straight arc, he's not going to turn, so it's easy to aim. Here's this guy. He's going to do the same thing, so I just kind of keep track of his position, and even if he goes behind cover, I can still take a good guess on where he is. So the special is a leap that's kind of cool looking, but to be honest, it's really bad. So the move puts you in this terrible position where you're just telegraphing like, look, I'm leaping at you. And you can't defend, you're completely at the mercy of whoever you're going at. It's really hard to sort of like control in turn, and it only does 50 damage, which is at, you know, at the end of the day is only like plus 10 to most of your swings that you can actually defend yourself, cancel everything else, you know, in the world too. So it's really just like a flourish to just kind of dab on people. It's really useless otherwise. You can get smashed in the air, and it kind of stun locks you when you land, so you can't do anything. And on top of all that, you've got an even worse version of the already bad jab hitbox. Everywhere I tried to use it, it just didn't really work, you know. It was just like a slower, terrible version of what I could just do by pushing my swing in any direction that I liked at all ever. It did have some like weird glitchiness that seemed to happen where things got poked into people at weird circumstances, but that was more, you know, just kind of random, and I couldn't really predict when that would happen and use it in use it in any really helpful way. So I would just recommend not using it. I really can't find a way to use it right now, at least in this patch. It's just bad. So everything about it is bad. Okay, so next up is traps. Traps are these things that you place on the ground, and if people step on them, they get knocked over. But traps are currently actually really terrible in this game, and they still aren't really fixed, and I don't know if it's possible to fix them. I mean, we're a year in, and I think just like the physics is like a huge problem, and it probably requires some really fancy fix that they haven't really done. So you can't really find any place reliably to put them down, and I would never rely on them because of this, because they just won't work, and you would think they work and they don't. But if you can, try and put them down in a place that has like a high traffic area. I noticed one of the things that works really well is this area with water, since it has a part where like you can't go up in the water. That plus the trap knocking someone down into the water seems to glitch them in place to where they can't get up because they get stuck between the two different conditions of the trap being a knockdown and the water preventing them from going, I guess, forward, and pushes them backwards, so they're permanently locked. Like, you can place the traps around like boxes or like in bushes or different objects that can kind of obscure them a little bit, but I honestly don't really find it working that well. Most people can kind of obviously see them. The other thing you could possibly do is you could put objects in front of them, like the barrels work pretty well. I mean, nobody really seems to think that this is gonna happen, but it works pretty well, and it totally destroyed that guy. I can pretend to be AFK, and I noticed that works. People get really aggressive, don't really notice the trap, and then you can get them. Okay, next up is throwing them at horses. Horses is a great way to practice. This is one of my favorite maps because they are very static in the way they move, so it really helps to train your ability to throw them. A lot of the times if they're coming back towards you, you get your javelins back. And they work pretty well on the horse themselves, so you can use them on there. They have a decent amount of range. You can throw them at people, because people run usually at you, especially to lance you. So if they're like low health, you can get them. So even if you don't, then you get lance. But it's fun. I would say that doing the bots is probably the easiest way to learn, and then stepping up from that would be throwing from a static position at the horses, and then the next step would be using the horse yourself and throwing it at people, and then that'll train you in your tracking ability and everything as you go learning more and more. You can pick stuff up off the horses. If you throw it at them and you can manage to catch up to them, you can pull it right off the horse. If you're throwing at people and they're going far away, you're never going to see those again. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to reload at the big canisters. You're not going to be able to get those back ever because the horse is going to go halfway across the map. You can do pretty well with this. You can kind of block a lot of the things. It doesn't have super great range, so against a lot of the 2H stuff, you're not going to be able to reach them. But you can definitely outmaneuver them if you can land it. Like, you can pull stuff off your own horse if another person is engaging you. The thing with the horses though is that you're gonna have to stop at one point and then reload your stuff. And at that point, you can probably just transfer the horse off to somebody else, and they can use it. simply because there'll be more efficient use of the time. But overall, I think the horse experience with jabs are great, and jabs are a great counter to the horse users. And it just feels so good. So the final section is just going to be a bunch of random hints and tips, so hopefully you've learned a lot in this guide, and this will just kind of help close off everything. So in this clip I'm showing you that the throw when you're charging up doesn't use any stamina, but when you press right click to cancel it, it uses up a large amount of stamina, so make sure it's worth it. Here, I'm showing you that the positioning that you're in is very important, and make sure that when you're taking somebody out that you're not pushing yourself in a bad position, because you never know who's around the corner. So here we have a Knigget who's being engaged by these two other guys. He gets bopped by the barrel. The other guy comes in and blocks him, so he feels safe holding his shield up, and then he puts it down because of the other guy's presence, and that's when I take it. One tactic that doesn't really come in very often, but you could technically do it, is try and minimize damage to somebody, but you could give them one of your jabs so that they have something if they don't have any item available to them, but most likely they'll throw it away and have nothing. So here I'm going to try and grab this archer and help this guy out, but it's too late. I get the archer, I don't see him anywhere, so he's probably hugging the wall, and he's going to go around one side or the other. So if he comes up here, I'm going to grab him, but he's not there, so I'm going to reload. He's probably grabbing my javelin in anger to throw it back at me, and when he rounds this corner, that's exactly what he does, and I pre-aim at it, and I get it. Unfortunately, you cannot use the ammo supply crates for arrows to reload your jabs. You have to go to the big ammo supply crates that are these big huge trunks, and they're filled with pointy sticks and stuff, but you can't pick those up either. Sometimes your jabs can launch people into space, which is a little confusing for everybody. When people do block your jabs, there's a tiny amount of pushback, but it's not a lot, but sometimes it can be just enough. Jabs can bounce back on a lot of surfaces. Jabs will interrupt somebody climbing something and knock them off sometimes. Or at least can scare them to pushing the button themselves in terror. At least pretty often enough to where it fools me into thinking that's what's happening. Never trust a knight, they have magical powers. Never turn your back on a jab. The skirmisher, you're one of the most mobile people on the map that's going to be able to rescue people. So make sure you do it. Yeah, please. And again, as an archer, you have the lowest HP in the game, and if you go for that throw and it does not connect, it is stun locking you forever. And everything in the entire game can take you out, and you will get punished for it. And lastly, one cool little silly thing that I noticed is that sometimes when you throw stuff at people and they maybe like grab back onto the ladder, and it's a really long ladder, I think is what happens, is they can get stuck in a permanent state where they can't do anything, and they might say that they're okay, but they're not okay. And they're just kind of stuck there forever, and nothing you do is going to take them out of it. Not even if you get the Liberty Bell of Justice and bash them with it, it's not going to save them. So anyways, I hope you liked the video. I tried to cover as many things as I possibly could figure out about Javelin, so hopefully this is a complete enough guide and gave you enough examples of how to aim and the timing of everything, so you can get really good at being a Javelin now. Javelin user, so please like the video, whatever, you know the deal. Okay, so thank you for watching. If you actually watched this far, I know you probably quit 3 minutes in. Okay, I love you, bye-bye.